Want to stop juggling spreadsheets, calendars, and a dozen apps just to run your rentals? Lodgify makes it easy. It's an all-in-one toolkit for hosts. Build a direct booking website, automate guest messaging, and keep all your channels in sync. Running your rental business your way has never been simpler. And for Good Morning Hospitality listeners, you can get 20% off any yearly plan with code GMH20. Just check the link in the show notes to get started today.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning. Happy 30th, Brandy.
Thank you. Thank you. I've officially crossed over.
I know. No longer 30 under 30. But
no.
Hey,
30 at 30.
30 at 30. That's the new
30,
list.
30.
I like
30 for
it.
30.
Exactly.
I like it. Well, it's good to have you back on again, too. We told everyone that you would only be once a month, but, here we are 2 weeks in a row.
I know. You've convinced me to come on more than once, so happy to do it.
I know. Our producer, I was going to say, our producer was talking about the numbers and how great you push them. And, so, yeah, I figured, it was an easy choice. But, no, seriously, it's really good to have you back on. Excited to hang out with you guys next week in person. And we're not going to have this, where is it at? This little divider between all of our faces will actually be on one screen, so it'll be really cool to.
But on Tuesday, not Monday.
Are we moving it to Tuesday? Oh, okay, we are moving it. I gotta change my calendar.
The organization is incredible.
Prime. It took us almost all year to figure out that next week on the 19th is our second birthday as well for the show. So
I know, it's so exciting. We'll have to, I think we actually will have to do the espresso martinis with the show. You'll be on my home turf. It'll be great. I think that's what we have to do.
I'm down for it. You've twisted my arm to drink an espresso martini on live TV, I guess. So I'm in. But outside of that, great week, great weekend. Anything fun, exciting to report before we jump into this week's content?
Well, I just had a chill weekend, which a chill entry into my 30s. So it's a nice way to start the week after actually resting all weekend.
I like it.
And
Nothing too
last
crazy.
week was a really hectic one. If you want to bring up the first article, we officially launched. So all sorts of different things happen during launch week, as many listeners on here know, but all very exciting, and it was wall to wall every day and still
welcome to startup and founder life, man.
It's fun though. It's so fast paced right now. There's so much opportunity that we have to kind of start being selective on which directions we go, but some cool things that hopefully in the next 6 months or so we can continuously share over with our live audience.
I wonder what you're talking about. I can only imagine the amazing projects behind the scenes. That's so good. But congratulations, man. And then Damien Sheridan Irish Coffees next Tuesday. I think we're gonna have to do it.
Yeah, I think so. We can. The type of drink is open for debate.
Yeah.
So
100%. Well, we'll have to do it live in person in Miami, which is going to be in Brandy's turf. And then we have no choice but to do a European tour travel of castles. We have to check out the brand. We can only take your word for as much as you say, right? We have to actually experience it.
I've done a show live from one of our properties.
You have?
Back in July.
Yeah. But still.
We have to see it. If we're going to promote it, we have to be 100% confident.
Yeah,
that's fair.
It's free press.
As soon as our producer flips the bill for us to get out there, then let's go.
Yeah. We are looking for sponsors.
Delta?
Yeah, Delta Airlines. I love it. Well, Sweet. Well, congratulations again. Happy birthday to Brandy. You two are crushing it. You guys had a great week. Pretty chill on my end. Just, traveled to Orlando. That was about it. So nothing too crazy, but we have a cool topic. I know we've discussed it before, but this is going to be the first time with Brandy actually partaking in the conversation, because we've had Michael Ross, who is the founder and CEO of Bidroom. He, covers all things subscription and membership. We joked about him being the Jeff Bezos or the Elon Musk of subscription. So we've had this conversation on the show before, but it's an interesting twist, I think, with the recent, I guess, coverage from Focus Wire and all this other stuff. So we want to jump in. Michael, looked like you had something to say.
No.
You had that face. I know it.
No, Ross always wanted to talk subscription travel, so now that we're
yeah, now that he's not on the show anymore, we're just bringing it up again. I love it. Go ahead, Brandy.
Yeah, we were talking earlier. I feel like this is similar to the digital nomad trend. Like, it feels very similar to that kind of vibe where, like, yes, it could be some people could really benefit from it and use it and really like the experience. But I think that in practice, it's not a sustainable business model, or at least it have to be very niche. And they give the examples of, I think, like AAA and Priority Pass. And so, yeah, I guess I don't know if I would count I guess AAA does some travel things, but I don't know if that's what comes to mind when you think like travel subscriptions. And so I would just be curious to see how this would evolve, because one thing I've just anecdotally noticed from my personal life is that all of a sudden you accumulate all of these subscriptions, and it's like, why do you have all of these, and do you really need it? If people, I think some of us take a lot of vacations just because of the industry that we're in, but if you're just the average person who's taking maybe 1 or 2 vacations a year, like, is that really necessary? So I guess it would really depend on what the core product is, but I think there's a difference between you like having like a Quip toothbrush subscription and then having like a travel subscription. So
yeah, I think what you've seen be somewhat successful, if you follow the stock ticker, it's not the most successful, but in terms of travel subscriptions, Inspirato is about as recognizable as it gets, but that only plays in the high net worth individual category that can take more than 2 weeks off a year, right? What to me is a missed opportunity for a lot of these travel subscription companies is the B2B play. Because if Delta had a subscription partnership with Deloitte and all of their consultants that are flying around every week, every month, every whatever, that basically buys their loyalty, and maybe they give them a 20% discount on all flights booked. Those types of subscriptions make sense where you're essentially buying loyalty. But the average Joe staying somewhere 1 week a year, that's called a timeshare. Like, that model has existed for 60 years. It's quite lucrative because they're often overpriced and underutilized. So the subscription model on paper, if you're a novice investor looking at a business, it looks like a home run, right? You can scale into oblivion with a travel subscription where maybe it's $1,000 a month. That's a ton of money. And you get, on paper, you draw your metrics to 20 million subscribers. Yeah, it looks great. But
yeah,
the reality is far from it. And, scaling the mass market subscription travel space is yet to be seen. I do think there are plays that can work, but it's going to be directly with people that have giant footprints that can fill needs on leisure, business, a Marriott, a Delta, a Hilton, an American. Like, they fly a lot of places. There's a lot of options on places to stay. And, it could be a perk for a company's employees too, if they have this, ubiquitous 20% off subscription, they can use it for their personal trips as well, which would be a nice little perk.
Well, then at that point, it's not really like a subscription. It's really just a partnership between two huge companies. But I would agree that would be a pretty sweet perk, a good incentive to work for a company like that.
I know
you're buying your future revenues and discounts, right? Like you give us $1,000 a month and we'll give you 20% off, which, it in many cases would probably pencil for Deloitte employees.
Yeah. Well, let's say I know for a lot of like the conversation we were having behind the scenes, a lot of us do work, not like us in general, but the industry, vacation rental operators, or even any type of sales. Usually you kind of work on some kind of commission structure rather than a subscription. I think the part about it I like about the subscription, and you guys are totally right, I don't think it's not possible to be in mass, consumer behavior. But I think for the specific niche categorized or the specific, quote unquote avatar, it's a good fit if it's, beneficial. The one thing from an operation standpoint is I think you can only reach a certain cap. Like I would love to know that I have a set guaranteed revenue coming in from subscriptions, but then that also kind of limits kind of my ceiling of where I can hit versus, if I had a mix of commission and subscription, for me, that means my commission structure could still, can continue to grow and grow and grow. Versus I feel like the subscription model, like again, only fits a certain, demographic that wouldn't be able to really scale, like you said, to 20 million users or whatever. But that's just kind of my opinion.
Well,
have a mix of both.
Brandy, does Sextant do partial guarantees with upsides?
Potentially. Yeah, and of course, so that's not uncommon, but I don't know. Yeah, I think I don't know how while I was thinking about this article, you can kind of like massage the definition of subscription into any of these different like definitions that we've given so far. But I was thinking about some of the subscriptions that I have and kind of what their equivalent would be in this space. And I just don't like what's something, what is the subscription that they're, that we're going for in the travel space? Is it you belong to this hotel group and you get, this 4 days a month, every month for this price? Is that the subscription? Is it like a perk, like the Priority Pass, which I'm pretty sure everyone just gets for free now with their credit cards? Like what is like, I'm having a hard time imagining what like the actual product would be for the regular consumer and not like the airline to Deloitte, version.
Yeah. I mean, you have to have a company that has massive scale for it to be attractive.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
yeah.
Sextant couldn't do a subscription unless it's a business that is split between
Miami and New Orleans.
New Orleans and Miami. Yeah. So, there's only a few companies in the world that could even offer an attractive subscription. But, if I don't spend $12,000 a year on Delta, but if Delta had $1,000 a month membership that's, 2 trips a month and you can do like 2 or 3 international trips a year, I'd probably sign up for it and they'd squeeze more revenue out of me. I would use it more, but that's kind of the draw for someone who's looking at doing a subscription model, to squeeze more revenue to get what Will's saying, that guaranteed, like we can take this to Wall Street and say we have $600 million guaranteed coming in every month on top of all of our bookings. And then as a traveler, it's something you would utilize. And there's just not too many scenarios that makes sense. If Vrbo did it, people only do 1 or 2 big vacations a year where they're going to book a Vrbo property, right? So again, it probably makes a lot more sense on the business travel side of things than it does on the leisure side.
Let's say for I kind of want to ask this question to our live viewers right now, but do you think there's anything like subscription wise that you would use? And then the question for you guys is, going into kind of some past conversations that we've had, we even had an episode called like great in theory, but not practical or something like that. And do you think like Airbnb, like let's say Airbnb has a massive audience, they have tons of eyeballs on them every month. Would they ever come up with a monthly membership fee where it's like, hey, you're a traveler on Airbnb, you pay, let's say, $500 a month or less. You could do even $100 a month. $100 a month, and this gets you X, Y, and Z perks. Just like how the way I think about it is like, Marriott's Bonvoy membership or their points, that converts into dollars on the hotel or the operator side, but not the rate or ADR or any of the rack like pricing that they have. On the back end, like when I was a front desk agent, someone redeemed like, I think it was 40,000 points, and that equaled to like $65 per night pricing or per rate for us, which sucked because like we were doing like killer numbers outside of that one, but he had the points and it converted to that dollar amount. So do you think Airbnb or any type of like platform with that type of audience would ever go into that,
I really hope not. Because for exactly that reason. And I mean, I think this is where it becomes that gray area is like, I could see Airbnb maybe doing like loyalty points, kind of like the Bonvoy members, and then those convert to cash. I think that makes more sense. But yeah, I think it gets tricky when your supplier, like Airbnb isn't the supplier. So you have to kind of contend with that aspect. But I mean,
whenever they ever given it into the supplier.
Right. Don't get Brandy started again this week.
I know. I just fire up.
I actually do think someone's going to do it, and I'll tell you who I would put money on that it is.
Be careful. You lost your house last time you put money on something.
Yeah, true. I still have it though.
Okay.
Hopper is all into these various fintech products and trying things out like price freeze or pay as you go is not a new concept, but adding it to a platform is probably helpful for the mass audience. So if anyone's going to do it, my money would be on Hopper and I would probably guess they're already working on models and things like that. Will it work? I don't know. Are the Hopper users the right demographic? Probably. Younger folks with less income, theoretically speaking, would be more on a fixed budget, and the more subscription susceptible people that would a subscription makes more sense for. So I do think a big brand will try it. Airbnb had kind of talked about it for a long time. Mm-hmm. I think it'd be a disaster if Airbnb did it, quite frankly, just because so many different properties, so many different pricing schemes. I know all of the hotels complain about different loyalty programs and how it's just a nightmare for hotels. Mm-hmm. Imagine doing that across millions of individual hosts.
Yeah, like the logistics of all of that. You have like someone who just like rents out their place for a couple weeks a year, and like them to, big operators. I think just dealing with that would just be a logistical nightmare, getting everybody on board, having terms that everybody agrees to. I would be incredibly unhappy if someone was able to book like New Year's Eve in Miami for $65 a night.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. On our end, like we're a smaller, like compared to Sexton, we're a very small management company, but like I would love to have like our loyalist guests that like stay at our snow cabin in the winter, and then our Seattle, big like waterfront property and our other like kind of like local property. I would love to have them like pay $1,000 a month just to get, into these like preferred properties that they love staying at before, versus like losing out on the dynamic pricing tool that we're paying money for to like actually jack up a rate so we actually make more money. So it's kind of like a pro and a con in my head. Just like it'd be great in theory to have like it for the slow months, especially when you're not driving as much traffic. But like you said, I think New Year's Eve and like all the other stuff, like I would want to block out and make sure that our revenue tools are doing their thing on the back end, as well as us kind of watching the market and seeing what other property competitors are doing just to ensure that high revenue. But yeah, it's a little mix of both. Sweet. Good stuff. Another article came out. So more regulation, more conversation around affordable housing, and why limiting short-term rentals is kind of big on the docket. So Brandy, you kind of mentioned this in our group chat. I want you to kind of take the lead on what you've seen. Yeah.
It's a really, like I mentioned kind of before, where this is a very nuanced conversation that I think, and those nuances get lost all the time. And so it's, there are some communities, like the article mentions Ocean City, New Jersey, I think, maybe these towns that don't have a big housing supply anyways are feeling these effects. And I've seen that, anecdotally. My family has a place in the Adirondacks in upstate New York, and there, that's an entire region that's built off of people going up for, seasonal vacations. But you're finding that the local housing supply is also now being used for short-term rentals or people coming up for the summer, whatever it is. And I think there is happening there is what's happened around the country is there's just a backlash to all STRs without really thinking about what that means when your entire local economy is built off of people vacationing. So I think my plea is always like rational and reasonable regulation, because obviously you need to have a workforce that can afford to live there to, support that entire, like the logistics of that economy. But I don't think that happens because people, it's very emotional. People are getting, priced out of where they've lived forever. So that's tricky. But then, when you go into more urban areas, I think that changes a bit. Not that I'm biased at all, but like there's obviously going to be more supply, right? So I think that conversation changes, and it's also different depending. Like New York, obviously incredibly tight housing market, but in New Orleans, it's not. Like it obviously just depends.
Yeah, I'm with you on like the really small destination markets. I know the Outer Banks on Saturdays in the summer buses people in for turns and maintenance from 2 or 3 hours away. Living in the Outer Banks, is probably unaffordable to most people anyway. But when these arguments come up in New York City citing affordable housing, it's laughable.
Yeah.
My office in New York City would probably cost $2,000 a month.
Oh, yeah.
Laughable. So they're just pointing the finger and trying to blame people for their terrible policies of limiting more construction or insanely high taxes. I'm not going to go down the political rabbit hole too much, but these are a lot of times self-inflicted, and it's a supply and demand thing. San Francisco, there's laws that you can't build higher than 2 or 3 or 4 stories. It's stupid. Like, you want to talk affordable housing, let people build high rises, not blame Airbnb and short-term rentals for all of your problems. So
well, it's a really convenient scapegoat. Like it's like, obviously there's and Airbnb now gets the brunt of all of the STR complaints. It's like, I feel like, Booking.com and Vrbo, these other companies are probably like, thank God, because they're not the ones that are getting dragged through the mud all the time.
Well, Airbnb is the redheaded stepchild. I feel like it's like, oh, we'll just blame it on that kid. He's the one that's, he's the loudest in the family. So we're going to just let him take all the blame.
Will and I are used to it.
Yeah.
But I mean, it is going to continue to be part of the conversation. And I think it's really interesting in our industry. We have, the whole range of geographic locations. So the reasoning behind some of the regulation in, like Tahoe, for example, is different from, what it's like in Miami, but it comes down to people. I think the a will to have rational conversations has kind of gone out the window. Everything is very knee-jerk, everything is emotional, and it's very clickbaity. And I think it's just the pendulum is swinging too far from, which is, I mean, how things happen a lot of times. But it could do a lot of damage if they don't have, like, to their own economies. So
well, I was thankful to, like, because a couple of weeks ago at the Favor event, or the Florida Alliance for Vacation Rentals conference, that was a couple of weeks ago. I got to interview Senator Kelly Stargel, who was really like having this big conversation on, or her, I guess more of her keynote or just presentation panel was around regulation, how this all works, and kind of like the legislature side of like the, I guess the non-biased side, right? What was that? Was it Brandy or is it Michael? I was gonna say I figured it'd be Michael, man. But she was talking on the legislation side and like kind of what it takes to really get these conversations going, and it really does. Like, as hard as easy as it sounds, it's not easy. And it's around like being less emotional when it comes to these conversations, because both sides are very passionate, and it's not just two-sided. There's like 400 plus sides around this conversation. But I think the regulation point of the less emotional you can be and the more logistic you can be, and like actually just bringing the facts and like data, which like we have tons of providers in the industry that are able to supply. So like, I think from a regulatory standpoint and like a legislation standpoint, the more like operators, yes, hosts, big PMs need to be involved, but let me finish my thought. It's just that I think the tech side needs to get on too, because they have the data, they have the numbers that show. Like AirDNA does a lot of advocacy work because they have the numbers, they can show it. I would love to see noise companies and property management software is getting involved as well. Like obviously they are involved, but just bringing that more as a kind of a, hey, here's the actual numbers, rather than here's a passionate host who rents out their short-term rental or their vacation home or their third bedroom a couple weeks a year. So now you can go, Michael.
You're not wrong. Logic should play a large role in policy. Sadly, it doesn't.
Yeah.
So you have to present the logical arguments, but you also have to bring in the emotional plays, which is why an Airbnb does a decent job at this, telling the stories of single moms who make rent because of renting out their extra bedroom on Airbnb. You have to tell the stories. Rent Responsibly has a whole like storytelling section of their policy, just because emotion is what sells. Emotion is why people vote in certain ways. Logic, people justify their emotions with logic. So they're going to anchor onto whatever logical bullet they think justifies their emotional decisions. So I would say, yes, get data out there, but don't forget to tell stories along the way.
Well, it makes sense because you're part of the story collection. But I was the big thing from her point, and just to clarify, was that people get too emotional and they don't bring any logistics to the table. So it's more or less like, I would just say, just stop going in there, because they don't care. Like at the end of the day, like if they do care, but like they don't care enough if you're just gonna yell and complain. Like they're not gonna hear it. Like on the legislation side, they're not gonna hear it. It's just straight. So if you hear someone nonstop complaining and pointing fingers and really just being kind of irrational, they're gonna tune you out, and they're gonna listen to the other side that does bring the data and the numbers and maybe some stories as well. But logistically, I think from a government standpoint, they're not going to care that it's just a story. They need to see both stories and the numbers behind it. So,
yeah, but politicians like to tell stories too. So you have to give them the story and let them retell it.
Yeah, you have to be a salesman. You have to really, like with anything, you have to be convincing of your point. So it is that kind of balance between story and data.
Yeah. Sweet. We're just ending it perfectly on time too. I think that's the
It's like
first.
we're pros at this.
I know. We finally got our 30-minute conversations down. Any exciting things you guys have coming up this week before we wrap it up?
No, I'm just excited I'm about to go back into like a mini conference season. So I'm excited to see you guys in person next week.
Yeah, getting ready. I gotta,
Miami.
Yeah.
Gotta get my body ready for late nights.
Yeah, exactly. It's all about like rest and prepare yourself, channel like
Hydrate.
22-year-old Michael, you know.
Oh, that'd be a disaster. Nobody wants to be 22-year-old Michael.
27, get up to
there you
my
go.
level. We'll be
Better.
good. We'll be good.
Better.
Yeah, sweet. Can't wait to see you guys at the Book Direct show. And then Brandy, I'll also see you at VRMA. Unfortunately, Michael, unless you change your mind, are you going to VRMA?
Unless GMH is sponsoring any trips, I don't believe so.
Nice. All right. Sweet. I'll talk to the producer about it. We'll see what we can do.
See what kind of budget we have.
Yeah. Sweet. Well, super excited. See you guys at the Book Direct show. For anyone who's listening or watching live, I will make sure there's a link in the comments. So you have to go find it either on the live for the replay, or you can go to Spotify, Apple, and find the link there. And then, of course, we'll see you all again next week. I probably should let Jamie know that we're going to move it to Tuesday because I also didn't let him know. But
you can be down there, though, right?
I have to confirm. But if not, we'll at least get him at VRMA. So we'd always switch. Watching the show be planned live. I love it. Yeah. Awesome.
Behind the scenes action.
Seriously, behind the scenes on the camera. Great. Well, good episode, you guys. There's probably a lot more this will carry on to and more conversation. So looking forward to it, and see you all again next week.
Want to stop juggling spreadsheets, calendars, and a dozen apps just to run your rentals? Logify makes it easy. It's an all-in-one toolkit for hosts. Build a direct booking website, automate guest messaging, and keep all your channels in sync. Running your rental business your way has never been simpler. And for Good Morning Hospitality listeners, you can get 20% off any yearly plan with code GMH20. Just check the link in the show notes to get started today.